Hey, welcome to Tabletop Skirmish Games. I'm Lee, and in this video I'll show you how to play the standalone Lord of the Rings skirmish game, The Battle in Balin's Tomb. Here's all the contents from the Lord of the Rings game, Battle in Balin's Tomb, and in this video I'll go through everything that's included in the instruction book, and it's a very small instruction book. We've only got 8 pages in total, and that includes the cover. We'll go through all the rules, look at all the different cards and the different abilities for all the different fighters. We'll look at the rules and how that might apply to co-op play, maybe even solo play, and then hopefully this will give you an idea as to whether or not you'd like to add this to your collection. Let's get started with the contents, and you're going to get 20 wound counters, 6 dice. You're going to get the ring to represent the turns. You're going to get your cards for the character cards, and then 9 miniatures for the Fellowship of the Ring. You'll also get character cards for the Moria Goblins and the Cave Troll, and altogether you're going to get 12 Moria Goblins made up of 4 archers, 4 spears and 4 swords and shields, and you're also going to get the Cave Troll. Then there's the 20 card Goblin Deck, and this tells you when to bring on goblins and how many, and altogether there's going to be 6 different types of cards. And finally, you've got the game board. So that's all the content. So now let's start looking at the rules, and let's head over to the tabletop where we can play through some scenarios and see exactly how the game plays. This game is for 2 or more players, and so 1 player will take the Fellowship and 1 player will take the Goblins. But if you want to play with more players, then what we've done is we've split it up. So there's 4 of us all together, and so the Fellowship divided into 3 players. So each player had 3 members of the Fellowship, and then 1 player took the Moria Goblins, almost like the Dungeon Master role in the game. There are no rules for solo play, but I'll talk about this at the end of the video and give you some ideas about how you could play solo with the rules that are included. To win the game, the Fellowship player wins if at the end of the 12th turn there are 3 or more members of the Fellowship left that have not been defeated, and they must include Frodo Baggins. If there are 3 or more members of the Fellowship remaining at the end of the game, but Frodo has been defeated, then the game is classed as a draw. The Goblin player will win if at the end of the 12th turn there are less than 3 members of the Fellowship remaining. So nice and clear winning conditions, but there is some drawbacks, especially if you're playing with kids. We played our first game where the Goblin player, that was me, killed Frodo in like the 4th turn, and then the kids didn't want to play the rest of the turns and get to the end of the game. So that was a bit disappointing. They just only wanted to play to win. They weren't interested in a draw and certainly didn't want to lose. So taking out Frodo early ruined the game in some respects there. That was good news for the Goblin player, which was me, but I think this could have some drawbacks. Killing Frodo early on in the game is only going to leave the opponent playing for either a draw or a loss, so not much incentive there perhaps. Now let's look at setting up the board, and to begin the game, place the members of the Fellowship on their starting squares, and these are all shown on the game board, all with their names. The Goblin player then places 9 Moria Goblins of their choice, so you can pick any of those Moria Goblins, onto the red shaded squares that represent the entrance to Balin's tomb, and all the other models are then kept to one side for later in the game. There are other red areas across the board, and these represent pillars. Now you can't place any miniatures in those, but it doesn't tell you anywhere in the rulebook that they are actually pillars and that can't be the case. But the way it's worded is you can only put those Moria Goblins in the entrance square. So all those other red squares are out of bounds, but they do act in the game to cover line of sight and things like that. So treat those other red squares as barriers or as columns. The game's divided into 12 turns, and at the start of each turn, just move that turn counter along 1 space on the turn tracker. In each turn, the Goblin player will always go first, and in each player's turn, they'll activate all their models on the game board one at a time. When each model is activated, they can either attack and then move, or move and then attack, or they can just decide to not do either or both. The Fellowship fighters have lots of different abilities, and so it's really fun to choose which ones to activate first, depending on the scenario and the layout of those goblins. So there is quite a bit of tactics involved in this. Now let's look at the character profiles, and on the character cards you're going to find profiles for all the models included, and every profile has got 5 elements to it: move, attack, defend, wounds, and abilities. And the fellowship cards also have an extra section titled the One Ring, and we'll cover this in a little while. Each model can move up to the number included in their move profile. So for Gandalf, for example, it's 6, and the models can move into any adjacent square, including diagonally, which doesn't already have another model in it. The Fellowship models cannot move into any square that's outlined in red, and that includes the entrance to the tomb. The Goblins can't go in any square outlined in red except for the entrance to the tomb. The Cave Troll takes up 4 squares, so when you move this model, just pick one square that it's occupying and then track the number of squares moved from that chosen square. Now let's look at a nice rule called Sudden Strike, and if a model moves from a square that is adjacent to an enemy model into a square that is not adjacent to that same enemy model, then the enemy model may make a sudden strike. The model making that sudden strike makes an attack roll using just a single dice, and the colour of which depends on who is making that attack. So blue for Fellowship and red for the Goblins or the Troll. And the cool thing about this rule is that no defend roll can be made against a sudden strike. Now let's have a look at the dice before we move on to the attack and defence. And so you'll see that the blue dice have got either a sword, a shield, the One Ring. The red dice have a sword, a shield, or the eye, a blank side. And then the grey dice, which is for the Troll, has the Troll Hammer, the double Troll Hammer, and the double shield, and then also the blank side. Now let's look at attacking, and generally a model can only attack an enemy when they are adjacent to them, but some models have the ability to attack at range. To make an attack, the model selects their target and then rolls the number and colour of dice as shown in the attack section of their profile, and then this is called an attack roll. For each of the sword or troll hammer symbol that's shown on the dice, the attacking model will inflict 1 wound upon their enemy. Let's look at the defence now, and when a model suffers a number of wounds from an enemy attack roll, they can defend, and to do so, the player will roll the number and colour of dice shown in the defend section of their profile. For each blue or red shield that is rolled, the model prevents 1 wound from being inflicted upon them. Once you've worked out how many attacks get through and how many are defended, place the number of wound counters on the wound section of the model's profile. When a model has more or equal the amount of wound counters to the number on their profile, they are defeated and then removed from the board. But note that models with only 1 wound, such as Moria Goblins or even some of the Hobbits, don't need to use wound counters, because if they suffer a single wound, they'll simply be defeated. Let's have a look at line of sight now, and a model can always make an attack against an enemy that they are adjacent to. But if they want to make an attack at range, so if they're not adjacent to a model, then they need to be able to see them. If they can't see the target, then they can't attack them. To decide if they can see them, draw an imaginary line from the centre of the square a model is trying to see from to the centre of the square they are trying to see to. If this imaginary line crosses a pillar or a square containing the cave troll, then the target model cannot be seen. If the target model is a hobbit or a goblin, then if the imaginary line crosses a pillar, Balin's tomb, or any other model, then they cannot be seen. Now let's look at the One Ring symbol and the Eye of Sauron symbol on the dice. If either of these symbols are rolled when a model makes an attack roll or a defend roll, then the model's controlling player may choose to represent any other result on the same dice with it. On top of that, the Fellowship has an additional rule that applies when they roll the One Ring symbol. Each card will tell you what this additional rule is and how to use it, and they're very different between the different models, and that makes it really fun. And the great thing is that when the Fellowship rolls the One Ring symbol, they can choose any result from that same dice, and they can then apply the One Ring ability as well. So really want to get lots of those rings when you're rolling. Another nice bonus from this is that if a member of the Fellowship has a rule that allows them to move again after rolling that symbol, the enemy models cannot make a sudden strike against them. Now let's look at abilities, and every model has their own special ability that they can use during the game, and these can range from Legolas being able to shoot from afar, to Boromir protecting those around him, and even to the Cave Troll who can unleash a devastating attack with its mighty hammer. So each ability is again going to be shown on the character cards, and that'll tell you exactly what to do with it. Now let's look at the Goblin Deck, and this is a really nice part of the game, and as that game goes on, more goblins are going to flock to Balin's tomb and appear on the battlefield. Before the game starts, you remove the They Have a Cave Troll card from the Goblin Deck and then shuffle the remaining cards. Then deal 6 cards face down. Then place the They Have a Cave Troll card in with those remaining cards, shuffle them all, and then place those shuffled cards on top of the 6 cards already dealt. And then this is your Goblin Deck ready to go. At the start of the second turn, and each turn thereafter, the Goblin player draws a number of Goblin cards from the Goblin Deck, and the number of Goblin cards drawn is dependent on the turn number, which you can see in this table. So as the turns increase, so does the number of Goblin cards that you draw. Each Goblin card will tell you how many Goblins are drawn to battle and where to place them on the board. This could be the entrance to Balin's tomb, next to one of the trapdoors, or even near the well. When you're placing the goblins, you can place any goblin model that is not currently in use and on the board, even if it had previously been killed. If you draw a card and you can't place the number of goblins on the game board because you don't have enough goblins remaining, then simply place as many as you can and then discard the goblin card. When you draw the They Have a Cave Troll card, place the Cave Troll in the entrance to Balin's tomb, and if there are any goblins on the Cave Troll space on the board, remove them from the game, because that Cave Troll has now squashed them as it rushed into the battle. Now we're on to the final part, and this is page 8 of the rulebook, and this is the challenges, and this is a really fun part of the game where you can choose a different challenge for the Fellowship and Moria Goblins, and this is going to influence how you play tactically during your game. There'll be 5 challenges for the Fellowship and 5 for the Goblins, and one of the Fellowship ones here as an example tells us it's called Protect the Halflings, and so you have to have either Merry or Pippin alive at the end of the 12 turns. You're not going to get any rewards for doing this, but I think it's fun, adds to the narrative, and just makes the game a little bit more interesting as you play out this scenario a number of times. For the Goblins, you might pick pointy-eared elvish princeling, and then you can defeat Legolas with a Moria Goblin with bow. So really fun to target the enemy player and the different models, and so I think this is a really nice touch to the game. And there we go, that's all the rules, nice and easy, really quick to get playing. I think this is great for new players, and even fun narratively if you watch the movie and then play out the game. I think that's really great. For our first game, once everything was assembled, it only took us less than 10 minutes to get playing. So I think that's really good, especially when you're playing with your family or people who don't normally play skirmish games. You can really get the rules across quickly and get playing straight away. So that's a real bonus for this game. I'm pretty sure this could get repetitive. You are playing out the same scenario over and over again. But I think if you start bringing in those challenges to it, then that's going to make it a lot more interesting. So I think they're quite an important part to this game. And then bringing those challenges in is going to make it really fun as well. You've got a mission to achieve within the battle. And I think that's really good. From that game we played where Frodo was taken out early, it really showed that you have to protect Frodo, because with the win, lose or draw scenarios, with Frodo taken out of it, the Fellowship player is then only playing to either lose or draw, so draw at best. And certainly with the kids, they didn't like that, they didn't appreciate it and didn't want to continue playing. So I think you really have to protect Frodo if you want to make it to round 12 with a chance of winning. It does say on the box that this is a 30 to 45 minute game, and once you've set up, that's pretty quick. There's not a lot of components going on, but I really think it takes longer than 30 to 45 minutes to play. You've got 12 rounds, so if you consider each round is 4 minutes per round, that's 48 minutes straight away. So even if you've got 2 players, it's going to be pretty tough to get it within 45 minutes from the experience we've had so far playing it. But certainly once you've got 4 players and you're splitting up the different miniatures between them, then it's going to take a lot longer as each one decides what to do, and also argue as you're trying to get your players as part of the co-op fellowship to act together and work together for the common cause. So I think if you're looking for a quick game, this might not be it. I think it is going to be really up there towards that 45-minute mark. One of the key things I was looking for this game was some solid solo play mechanics. I really hoped they would include that, but it just isn't really. You've got those cards which tell you how many goblins to bring out at any one time or whatever turn, and then where to place them. But there's no rules that tell you what to do after that. It's really up to the player. So I think if you're looking at this for a solo play, you're really going to have to put some rules or some mechanics in place yourself. You could definitely use the challenges for the goblins and then create some mechanics around each of them. For example, you could choose each of the spear goblins to move towards a specific player, or sorry, a specific model, and the same for the bow. You could choose those archers to only target Legolas, and if they can't see Legolas, then they go to the nearest player after that. And then with the shield, again, you could choose them to go after some of the maybe tougher or stronger models and choose to do it that way. Just simply go after the closest one to them. You could even do it so that certain goblins move towards the closest halflings and certain goblins move towards the closest kind of human figures and things like that. So I think that's some quick ways you could put it in, and certainly turn it into a solo game, no problem. But I'll be doing this solo play for my Weekend Warriors, where I'm writing a proper set of mechanics and rules that'll be nice and simple that you can apply to pretty much any game and any scenario. So look out for that coming soon. Personally, I think this is a really fun game. I don't think it's a solo game, but I think it's fun for co-op. If you can split the fellowship into 2 or 3, then it's really good fun, and then have one other player as like the dungeon master controlling the goblins and the cave troll. I think it's a really good way to go. Certainly a great family game. But even with just 2 players, I think there's enough going on with the different abilities that you could make it quite tactical. You could combine the different models, do different things, so you could put them into little groups and make sure you get one in a certain position to protect another. Also, Boromir, for example, can help out anyone he's adjacent to because they can do re-rolls and things like that. So I think there's definitely enough going on to make it interesting. There's enough depth there to make it perfect for like adult players. And so if you just want to play 2-player one-on-one, then I think it could be really fun. But for me, this is a fun family game that really suits the co-op way of playing. I'd love to know what you think about the game, so if you've picked it up already, let me know in the comments section below. But if you haven't, is there anything from this video that really stands out to you that appeals, or do you just not like the look of it? Either way, let me know in the comments below. It'd be great to hear from you. I hope you enjoyed the video and that this gave you a good idea of what's included in the box and how the game plays out. Please like if you like it, subscribe for more videos like this, hit the notification bell to join me next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games, and also take a look at my own game, Weekend Warriors. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you here next time on Tabletop Skirmish Games. If you like this kind of content and would like to support the channel, then please check out my Patreon page, and thanks to everyone who's joined so far. It's really awesome. We hang out on Discord, talk about the hobby, share ideas and help each other out, and you'll get some perks there that you're not going to find anywhere else. So I'll put a link in the description, and it'd be great to see you there.